My name is Francisco Cordova, and today we're going to talk about a project that we're researching that could change the way that people invest in the world. That's the challenge. How can we create something that transforms the market? This is part of two elements. One is the Agora program, which is a Marie Curie program where we have more than 17 researchers in many countries around Europe. And this also comes from my experience working on tokenization, crypto, AI algorithms. And now with Innovat, we are trying to change the game again. So, one question, just raise your hand. How many of you use ChatGPT Cloud on a daily basis or similar, correct? Everyone. That's around the world, we know it. No matter if people believe it or not, everyone will use it and it's just going to increase. It doesn't matter the name, it doesn't matter if tomorrow Anthropic launches a new system, we're gonna keep is just using it. So what is happening? Well, it's happening that right now, ChatGPT, Gemini, is gonna incorporate new things that you can do with your agent. So, like what? Buying, that's the number one step. So you just request your agent to buy for you. That's number one. Second, then you just request your agent to book an air ticket for you. You have a next conference of fame, you request the agent because the agent knows you more. Actually, now that every day we talk with them, we give them more data. So that's the reason they can personalize the experience better for us. And the third element is that people are saying, okay, what if we give agents also the possibility of investing on my behalf? So when we analyze history, the financial tech evolution, we have the robo-advisors. Does any one of you ever use a robo-advisor, meaning an AI advisor that tells you what to buy or what not to buy in the stock exchange, in crypto, and anywhere? Raise your hand. Okay.
Never did.
Yes, there you go. So not so many people because of many reasons. Now, we have another big area, which is asset tokenization. Raise your hand again. Has any one of you bought Bitcoin or stable coins at least once in your life? Just raise your hand. Just want to know. So you two never bought Bitcoin?
Really?
No, not John. Other people here. Okay, so now let's think about this. When we start talking about Bitcoin and blockchain a couple of years ago, people believed we were crazy. When I published my first book in 2014 and I talked about Bitcoin and blockchain, people believed that I was crazy. When I told them in 2017 Ethereum is building the next evolution of blockchain, they would tell us we were crazy. Then in 2018, we developed one of the first semi-stable coins in the world, meaning that we not only developed a stable coin, but we created algorithms to see if we can have different types of stable coins. Now, the world is moving to using stable coins as a payment method, and it's growing a lot. Stable coins mostly are American-based. What is a stable coin? Very simple. I have a token that is created, a digital representation of an asset. In the first case, $1. So you have $1, one digital dollar. That's it. The most famous, USDT and USDC. Now, what is the other trend? Europe, even though people criticize Europe a lot, is the only region in the world who has clarity on the usage of stable coins, on the usage of digital assets, and in the usage of crypto. That's because a law called the Market in Crypto Assets, which is a law that is happening in the next 2 years. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that law here. 1 second. So you can see the evolution of this law. And then I go back to the key elements. So from 2026, December 2024 till December 2026, all countries in the EU has to adapt to this law. That's the benefit. People like it or not, it's very clear, the law. And it's so clear that even the biggest companies that have stable coins like USDT, USDC, had to align with the law. That's the key thing about the law. So some people were saying, well, if Europe has this law, innovation will just go down, and then the biggest one in the world, Tether, will not launch. What they did, they had to change their laws. And why? Because the European Union said, if you want to create a stable coin, meaning a new type of payment method or currency, you should have enough reserves. Because what happens if something happens in your company? How are you going to pay back? So that happened with the law. Now, that's another key element that has happened in the last years. And then we have the beauty of tokenization, which is, okay, we just run the experiment of USDT, USDC. What else can we do with the same technology? And if you read The Economist from this week, you will see that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset holder in the world, we can say, just published why tokenization is the future of finance. So we're very aligned of what is happening. Actually, what Larry Fink has been saying is that the laws are not well defined in many areas of tokenization. But why he knows that and why he wants that? Because it's simple. Now imagine that everything that we see in our world, from physical assets to financial assets, could have a digital representation of that asset. What happens if we have a digital representation of that? We can ask for loans, we can send that faster, we can do more financial operations on top of that. That's the logic of asset tokenization and why it will happen. It's not of it is a matter of when. It's very simple. In the EU, by the end of 2026, meaning starting 2027, the laws in every country will be very clear for any company that wants to launch a business related with asset tokenization. Now, the process is very simple. You take an asset. Let's suppose I'm having my house, which is one of the biggest areas that is going to happen. And then I want to take the house that I have in Nicosia that costs 250,000 euros, and I create a digital representation of that house. So now imagine that those 250,000 euros are 250,000 tokens. And each one of those tokens represent that ownership in that house. When you take that asset and then you put that asset on the blockchain, of course, you need legal elements. It's not that you just simply say, I'm going to put my house in the blockchain. No, that's the reason countries need to adapt. What is the most advanced country right now, for example, in real estate tokenization in the world, is the UAE. Because VARA, which is the specific regulation that they have, has done the first experiments. Actually, we won last year the Bank of Cyprus hackathon because we proposed how in Cyprus we could do it. And it's very simple. You go to the Lands Registry of Cyprus, you give them a wallet, and you create a system that instead of keeping doing things as we do it today, you also have a digital representation of each one of the transactions. So when you are having, let's say, your purchase agreement of your house, the asset also has a digital representation that is being co-signed by the government. So when a user, for example, sells his house, well, that house is really has a legal protection. What happens if someone has the legal elements of his house in his phone and people stole his phone? What do you think will happen in that case? Because I'm telling you how good is tokenization, but let's think the bad scenarios. What happens if someone is kidnapped, asked to open his phone and say, transfer me that asset that I know you have in your phone? Because it will be as easy as to transfer coins, correct? What do you think will happen in that case? Does that mean tokenization works? Not works? What do you think? That's a good question. Think about it. Qatar asked that question, and that's the reason they created the Qatar Asset Tokenization Framework. Very clear. And they calculated that, and they said, well, if that happens, the user can go to the government and prove that that happened. Therefore, because the government is a co-signer of transactions, he can, in that way, destroy that token and generate a new token. Correct? Because normally in a transaction, if I'm selling you my house, I should receive money in my bank account, correct? If I'm giving you my house, there should be a legal element that is saying, I'm giving you my house, correct? So in that way, either when we have asset tokenization, we should have elements that allow governments to also help in those type of cases, okay? So in Qatar, they have their framework, but they haven't implemented. They're also kind of cautious, which is interesting. And I went to Qatar just to talk to them, and they're very cautious. Like they have the framework, but no one is doing the tokenization of house because it still is tricky, but it will happen. So now, what happens if you create an AI agent who's able to analyze the market and analyze different signals of the market? Because come on, we don't have enough time in our lives to analyze the market, correct? So what happens if you have an agent that reads the news? What happens if it goes to Google? What happens if it goes to Twitter? And then the agent analyzes all that data and then it creates a new model. And it says, well, I can create a portfolio of stocks for you. That agent was created. It was called the Market Sense agent, which has 3 papers that you can read. Very interesting, 2023, 2024, and 2025. And the 2024 paper was, can an AI agent powered by ChatGPT beat traders, beat the market, beat the Standard & Poor's? That's the interesting question. So this project was created. They are in the market and they are making it better. So now they have a very powerful agent that is available for us, not for big companies, not for big traders. Remember that before the generative AI, well, only if you have a lot of money, then you can have the big funds that are recommending you. Actually, most of those funds, they lose money, but that's other story for other day. But the key thing here is now, because we have the same power or a different type of power to invest, how can we use it? Well, they have it, and the research has shown that they have outperformed the market. So they took the agent, they analyze different stocks, and then they recommend you, okay, this is a good time to sell Tesla, short Tesla, or to buy Tesla. And they give you the reasoning. You are the one that makes the decision. But when we think about this, and we think about the evolution, what if we can just allow the agent to make decisions for ourselves? Correct? We're already using ChatGPT on a daily basis. We're already trusting ChatGPT, even when it's wrong, which is wrong 40% of the time, but it doesn't matter, people believe it, correct? So what if we allow the agent to make investment decisions for us? Similar as if I am hiring a human to make financial decisions for me. So what is the problem? Let's imagine Market Sense wants to offer this to the market. What is the problem of offering to the market? You have 2 options. One, you do it all by yourself, or you hire a white label service. In both cases, the minimum money that you need for operation of 3 years, it will be 1.2 million euros, only for operation and being compliant. Imagine that. So it doesn't matter if you have something that beats the market, going to the market and offering to the people, it's expensive. If you have a lot of money, you just call your father, he sends you the 2.3 million, and then you launch. So in Europe, we have a legislation about something called the ETFs, correct? Imagine that you are buying a new type of ETF. Well, launching your ETF is very expensive. So the questions that I ask myself is, okay, we're seeing these trends. We're seeing the AI agents being used every day, the AI agents making decisions and analyzing things for us, and we're seeing asset tokenization. I ask, what if we tokenize the AI agent? And that's the concept that we're exploring, a new type of business model that we call it AI ETF, tokenized AI ETF. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna show you a little bit of our progress so far. First, we choose to run a Monte Carlo simulation. What is a Monte Carlo simulation? Imagine is a way to test different probabilities. Who remembers Doctor Strange from the Marvel movies? Everyone, no? Or no? Who doesn't know Doctor Strange from Marvel? I want to know, so... Okay, everyone knows him. Remember that Doctor Strange, in one moment, when they're fighting Thanos, he goes there and starts calculating all the possible scenarios, correct? That was his job. And then at the end, he said there's only one scenario that we win. Correct? That's it. That's the reason they needed to lose against Thanos in that moment. Well, a Monte Carlo simulation is similar, but with mathematics. So what we did? Well, I said, what if we take all the data from Ethereum from the past 3 years? So we took from January 2022 till January 2025, and we analyzed the cost of the gas of each transaction. Remember that blockchain, the challenge is the gas fee, meaning that when I'm sending either Ethereum or other token, I have to pay a gas fee. And I'm taking Ethereum because it's the most expensive. We all know it. Everyone that is in blockchain knows that doing things in Ethereum is extremely expensive. But we took it as our first case just to analyze, even with Ethereum, we could beat the market. That's the key question. So we analyze the data. And here you can see how, if today I want to build an ETF from scratch, this is how much it will cost me. Legal structuring, listing and seed, product design cost, initial 325,000 euros. Then I need to pay a benchmark license fee, fund administration, custody, audit, distribution, almost 670,000 euros per year. So it's extremely expensive. This is your ETF. What about if you white label it? Well, white label is a little bit cheaper. It's 62% cheaper. That's good. That's good. But can we do it better? That's the key question that we're analyzing here. So these are the parameters that we put in our Monte Carlo simulation. Number one, we started with the signals. Because remember, the AI agent is sending signals. And he's saying, hey, time to buy. Hey, time to sell, etc. So we calculated an average 10,000 signals. That will be. Okay. Then the second element is transactions per signal. So if the AI agent is identifying after all his analysis that is the good time to buy Tesla, how many transactions is to buy after telling you, yes, let's buy. So we calculated on average 3. And then, because we want to have real-time data, we use something called an oracle. I'm not talking about the company Oracle, I'm talking about the oracle in blockchain, which is a way to decentralize the data aggregation, okay? So I need to consult the oracle to validate some of my transactions. So we put the oracle and the cost, like right now you use Chainlink, it can go as low as 5 cents, okay? And then the automation level. We can have an automation that is the human that makes the decision, is the human that makes the weekly, or you just automate to do it daily, depending on the model. And then, what type of tech infrastructure do you need? That's the key question. How much can we build? So we built the system that even with 2,000 euros in tech infrastructure, you can build the tech for making this happen. I said that the maximum will be 10,000 euros. Of course, if you do that, you need code audits. Those are the expensive ones. So I put an average each time you deploy a smart contract on 30,000 euros per year. Okay? Of course, depending on the volume of transactions, you should have more audits each 3 months. It depends on it. And the last element is the European compliance. What kind of European model we should take? Remember, we're talking about markets in crypto assets. So we run different combinations and can go up to 40,000 euros. But imagine 40,000 euros compared to what you pay in the other is much lower. So we run our model, and even with these elements, the probability of the tokenized ETF beating the system is 65%, meaning that you will save, in these cases, with Ethereum, which is the most expensive blockchain, 53,000 euros. And you can see how in the best case scenario, of course, it will just cost you less than 400,000. In the worst case, it's 1.5 million euros per year. Because that depends on the price of the gas. And remember that gas prices change it by minute, actually, by second. So we run all these scenarios to calculate that. But then we said, okay, now also the cost. So deploying the contract, look how cheap right now is to deploy a contract, 63 euros. That's it, on Ethereum, very cheap. What is the most expensive? Of course, the gas. 90% will go to Ethereum. If we want to build something in layer 2, it's extremely expensive. The automation, just 1,000, the Oracle 1,000, the tech infrastructure, we put an average of 6,000, U compliance 40,000, and the audit 30,000. And we put that, we optimize the model instead of running 4.5 billion simulations to 250,000 simulations. Imagine we're running 250,000 simulations to see, based on the gas prices of Ethereum in the past years, how those gas prices could change our model in the future. But then we said, okay, how can we optimize it further? We just changed one variable. The number, look here in the top, the number of signals. I told you that 10,000 signals. Well, if we just decide to reduce in half the number of signals, look how much money can the system save, almost 500,000 euros. And that's when you start optimizing the system, because now you can play. Because do you need that amount of signals? That's the key question. Maybe you have is to pre-optimize everything with the agent and only do the signal when you have made the decision. Because remember that each signal is cost. It's like each time I send you an information, so I need to be sure from an agent perspective, like buy. I should not tell you, I recommend you to buy, but no. So in that case, when you automate the agent to make the decisions of investment, it just saves you 500,000 euros. Now, what happens when you increase the signals to 11,000, just 10% more? The model doesn't work anymore. Then you just start losing money. From that on, it's extremely expensive. It's better to keep doing in the traditional way. So the more signals that are sent from the system is the worst. So that's interesting, because then you work on optimizing the model to give the less amount of signals, so that will reduce the cost dramatically. And that's the reason in this model we run 5,000, we even increase the Oracle data, we even increase the automation to daily, to see, and still you save 400,000 euros, which is a lot of money. Now, and this will be the way. Look, the gas right now is almost half of the gas. Of course, one signal, two signals, less. Now, what is the verdict so far with Ethereum? That if you build a model with a tokenized AI ETF, even with Ethereum, is cheaper than a traditional ETF. Even with Ethereum, and full compliance with the EU new laws. What we're gonna do next? Well, we took Ethereum, which we know is the most expensive one. The next one is gonna be Solana, and then Base, which our hypothesis is that the gas fees that you said are gonna be lower in 90%, 90. Because some experiments that I've done in the past, instead of in Ethereum paying, let's say, €1, I will pay 10 cents. That's it. So imagine. And then that's how you decide which blockchain makes sense for your model. And all of these are layer 1, well, not Base. Base is kind of weird, but let's say Solana and Ethereum are layer 1, and Base is a layer 2, okay? The next step is that you will be able to deploy your agent. So you will just go there, put the liquidity in the system. It will be something very simple. You will be able to connect your signal generation agent. Then it will create a specific token with your name, remember, like an ETF ticket. And then you can put the liquidity. So you define what kind of liquidity, and then click and create, and everything is connected. That's what we're gonna build, actually. What is the vision? What if we can just build a new generation of ETFs, and given for the first time allowing people to build competing service with the traditional ETFs. Because right now, only the big guys with a lot of funds can compete. What if everyone can compete? Will not be better for the end user and allow the end user to choose? That's our goal with the project. I show you. And there are different types of business models, including fee generation. This is inspired by a project called Pump.fund. Raise your hand if you have heard about Pump.fund. Never. None of you. It's incredible. And why is it incredible? It is the most successful project on Solana that allows you to build meme coins. And you said, okay, Francisco, but meme coins, that's nothing. Think about this. The project was built so great that on average, they're issuing 50,000 meme coins per day, and the total volume of 2024 was more than 1 billion euros. And with average price per transaction of just 7 cents, demonstrating that it's possible to handle high volume, high output, you can automate processes, and you can build it. So that's what I like Pump.fund, which I wrote a paper about Pump.fund and how they do it. So I recommend you to check my paper on that. And the invitation is to join us so we can build together this type of tokenized AI ETF. If you haven't added me to LinkedIn, now is the time, very important, so we can keep the conversation flowing. And yeah, some questions, ideas, things that pop to your mind.